I'm disturbed by what's going on in France, but I'm also hopeful because of what's going on in France. For those of you who don't know, Macron, the president of France, has announced that vaccines will essentially be mandatory in order to conduct normal daily life through a vaccine passport system, which will not be voluntary. It will be completely mandatory for certain businesses to check each patron that comes through their door, to check their vaccine passport and make sure that they've had their jab. And if someone enters one of these establishments, like a cafe or I don't know, any other retail store, I'm sure all public transportation, certainly, they could be imprisoned for up to 6 months, and the business owner could be imprisoned for up to a year. And that's in addition, I believe, to some pretty serious fines. I think I heard 25,000 euros being kicked around. In other words, for a normal person, living paycheck to paycheck, this could ruin their life. And this is the most punitive measures we have seen any government take, to my knowledge, to try and impose vaccinations onto people. And we're so far beyond the government pushing the vaccine too much to the point to where it gives people the impression that there might be something wrong, or else why would the government feel like they have to push this so much? We're well past that point. People got to that point a long time ago, and they realized that, some very bad people are very, very insistent upon me taking this drug, which varies by country to country, because of course they have different vaccines in France than we have here in the United States, but you have the same push, and it has bred much more skepticism than it has smothered. I'll put it that way. But by instituting these measures, the French government is trying to make it clear, we don't care if you're hesitant, we don't care if we've scared you away from taking the vaccine, we don't care if you're nervous, we will take away any chance you have at living an ordinary life if you don't take this, and if you don't take it and try to live your life normally, we will ruin your life and make sure that, for the foreseeable future, you feel more and more pain. They're trying to make it so that the risk-reward ratio of taking this vaccine is so weighted in the direction of, or they're trying to make the risk of not taking it so strong that it de facto forces every French citizen into taking it. And so it's as close to a mandate as you can say. They don't want to call it a mandate. They don't want to say that we're literally, going into people's homes and shoving needles into their arms. But that's what they're doing when you say, oh, well, no, you don't have to get the shot. But if you don't get the shot and you try and go outside and go to any public place, we're going to throw you in prison, in which case, you will lose your job because you will be in prison, and then when you get out, you'll be a felon. I don't exactly understand how the French legal system works. I don't know if they call people felons, but you'll have a criminal record, and you will be unemployable, and your old boss won't want you back, and your wife will leave you, and your kids will never talk to you again, and your life will be destroyed. It's kind of the form of authoritarianism that the communist countries moved to after the Stalinist era, because back when Stalin was around, and in all of the countries that were run by true Stalinist leaders, like, let's say, East Germany under Walter Obrecht, or North Korea under what was his name, Kim Il-sung. The Stalinist approach was all dissenters, they put them up against the wall and kill them. But later on, communists, they figured out, hey, this isn't the most efficient way of doing things. We've got too many bodies that are stacking up. We've got, the gulags are full. We can't send any more people to Siberia. So wouldn't it just be a lot cheaper, instead of killing these people or turning them into slaves, why don't we just destroy their lives and make them pariahs in society so that they can't live a normal life unless they do as we say? And that's now the kind of tactics that Western governments are attempting to use on people who refuse to get the jab. And so this is about much, much more than, simple vaccines. Because this tactic, once it has been proven to work, will be used in plenty of other cases. They will find other uses for this, just like they found other uses for the Patriot Act. Once the global war on terror era kind of ended here in the United States, they said, well, okay, we're done spying on the muzzies. Now, I guess let's pick on right-wingers. The government never puts any tools back into its toolbox, to use a euphemism that's popular in the economics profession. Once the government knows that people will accept this kind of treatment, they will dish it out in a whole number of cases in order to get their way. And so that's why I'm heartened by the resistance that's being shown by the French people, despite the fact that they're completely unarmed in France, and that they don't have a real way to combat the government, militarily or anything like that. They're not trying to do that. They're not that, they're not so dumb as to think, oh, well, we don't have, the government has bigger guns than us, or we don't have any guns, and the government has all the guns, so we can't fight back against tyranny. They understand that the whole system only works because they choose to participate in it. And they have and I've always considered this to be a weakness of France, that they have this strong culture of people trying to disrupt society every time they want to raise. But in cases like this one, it's a very serious matter. It's not just, oh, I want a $2 hourly raise. It's I want to stop tyranny. Well, I'm thankful for France's culture of protest. Because, like I said, this is about much more than just vaccines, and it's about much more than France. France is, one Western nation among many, and the tactics, that are being pioneered in France, if deemed successful, will be transplanted to other Western countries. Even if they don't do it in the vaccine context, they will do it in other contexts. They will use participation in society as a weapon. They will unperson you. They will throw you in jail for not making the same decisions in your personal life that the regime urges you to make. The personal has officially become political. That's what this whole past year has really been about. The most intimate details of your personal life are now considered a matter of public interest. Your medical history is being weaponized against you. Something that, up until 2020 had been considered, something that was totally sacred that must be kept secret. And so who knows what next all of these tactics will be used on. Because, we've already talked about, I haven't, but many people have talked ad nauseum about climate change lockdowns and how, we need to have lockdowns to cut our carbon emissions, and that whole scheme. And the carbon thing itself, the reason why they target carbon is because, there's carbon is, it's directly correlated, with wealth and economic advancement and human production, civil society itself. So if you reduce carbon, you're shrinking, you're shrinking society, you're shrinking wealth, and it's a catch-all thing. If they can regulate that. But, that's getting ahead of ourselves here. But again, the virus thing is very similar. If they say, your health, your personal health is a matter of public interest, and so we can control everything that you do based on what your health is, that gives the government the right to snoop into the most intimate aspects of every single individual's life across their territories. Because there's no longer an understanding that your health is your own. Your health is the nation's health. And if you're making the nation sick, you are an enemy of the state who must be punished. Now, at this point, I think that Macron is so mortally wounded politically that this stuff is not going to fly in its current form. I think that there will have to be a revision to what they're trying to do in France. But what I fear is that they're playing the game to where the electric company jacks up your bill by 600%, and then gives you a 50% off discount, and and says, "Hey, look, I cut your bill." Where in reality, your bill is still up 300%. Macron, I think, might be doing the same thing here, to where he comes out with something that is so ridiculous and tyrannical on its face that when he withdraws that and puts something forward that is slightly less tyrannical and ridiculous, he will look like a moderate, which is, how he campaigned. He said, "Oh, I'm this, moderate, independent, Rothschild banker who's neither, far left nor far right," which is to say he was square, straight in the middle of the ruling class. He was friends with the entire ruling class. So, like I said, I'm quite pessimistic, or I'm quite, I'm quite dejected, but I'm also quite hopeful. I'm very bipolar on this issue. It can, I would say it can go either way, but I really don't think it can. I think that the odds of anything good coming out of this situation in France are slim. I think that what victory will look like is limiting the damage done to civil liberties in France beyond what has already been inflicted. Perhaps there will be some limited backlash against the violations of civil liberties that have gone on over the past year, well, more than a year now, getting close to a year and a half. It's sad, but actually it has been a year and a half. And so maybe some of that will be rolled back, but ultimately the advances made by the state, I do not think can be erased. But it's imperative that the French people draw a line in the sand and really finally say so far and no further. That is a conservative position, which by definition is a losing position. If you're on defense, you're losing. You always want to be on offense. But I don't have that much faith in the spirit of the French people. I don't think that there is going to be another French Revolution. It would be nice, although I wouldn't want it to end up like the first French Revolution. I am sort of a classic right-winger in that sense, that I would have been strongly opposed to the French Revolution. I would have sat on the right side of the aisle in the National Assembly. But that impulse, but that's because of the results of the French Revolution. It's not that I think that what they were rebelling against was necessarily a good thing. I don't think that at all. I just think that what they replaced it with was much, much worse. And you could say, well, there's that possibility for that to happen again here. And, if there were to be some kind of modern French Revolution against the bureaucratic managerial state. But, when you're in a terrible position, I think that people are willing to take that risk. Just like the folks in Cuba were so willing to take the risk on Castro in order to get rid of Batista. People don't remember, but Batista, was largely not a well-liked guy. He was considered to be pretty oppressive and tyrannical, and Castro ended up being worse. But at the time, you don't know that. Could there be some kind of revolution in France and they replace Macron with someone even worse? Yes. But the hope is always that doesn't happen. Now, I don't think that it's really that it's worth worrying too much about that, because I don't think that the Fifth French Republic is going to fall in the next few weeks or in the next few months. Now, if I'm wrong about that, I will very happily admit that, but I don't think that I will be. I think the best at this point that people can hope for is that there will be a new establishmentarian brought in to replace Macron, who doesn't have all of Macron's baggage. That's what they really want to do. They say, hey, Macron, he's a dirty shirt, and they're going to throw him in the hamper, walk up to the closet, and get a new shirt. But that shirt is ultimately going to be the same size, the same cut, and the same color as Macron. And so if it's an itchy, ill-fitting shirt with a neck that when you button it up just completely constricts you and chokes you, throwing out the dirty shirt and exchanging it for a clean one isn't going to do a whole lot, now is it? So with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.